This ain't hero bullshit. I just joined for college. I worked with some of those dudes.
Yeah, absolutely. Same.
Hey everybody, welcome to Whiskey, Lead, and Steel, Feelings Hurt While You Wait, the official podcast of Aggressive Defensive Solutions. I'm Ric Sutton, and joining me today is Jeremy Phillips. We're going to talk about something that is kind of an interesting topic, I think. And that's the concept of sheepdogs and wolfhounds. Almost everybody knows about the whole sheepdog thing. Dave Grossman, who's a friggin' genius, no doubt about it.
Absolutely.
Coined the whole sheepdog thing years ago. For those of you who don't know what we're talking about, because sheepdog is something that you see everywhere. Everybody's got sheepdog this, sheepdog that, all kinds of t-shirts. So Dave Grossman, in his first book, I think it was On Killing, he talks about society, and he breaks it down. He makes the analogy of society is a flock of sheep for the most part, right? Almost nobody wants to be problematic. Nobody wants to cause any heartburn. We just want to get on with our life and go on about doing our thing. And so society is the sheep, and then the wolves are the predacious members of society.
Yep. The
criminal element, the terrorist element, if you will, whoever it is. And so somewhere along the line, the sheepdogs, which are physically much more related to the wolves than they are to the sheep, obviously, they're predacious mammals. The sheepdogs have decided, they've taken it upon themselves to guard the flock and keep the flock safe. One of the ways that they do that is from time to time they have to bite a sheep and scare a sheep and make him do his thing, right? And then they put themselves between the wolves and the sheep to keep the sheep safe. And that analogy is police officers. So police officers, and then to a lesser degree military, become the sheepdogs. From time to time they got to get nasty with the sheep and scare a sheep to keep the sheep in order, keep them safe. But then the rest of the time what they're doing is they're protecting from wolves. So what are your thoughts on that? When you look at that, when you think about that, what is your take on the whole sheepdog thing?
So, read both of Colonel Grossman's books. Great books, great reads, extremely fascinating, extremely relevant.
Yeah.
I take a step back and I look at it in defense. Defense in Western society is noble. It is good. It can't be bad.
Yeah.
You are protecting what is yours. You are protecting what is right. Department of Defense, for example. DOD. Noble, good, righteous, whatever. But it ignores a basic principle. It is sitting there talking about, defending American society. Well, part of that is, at some point, you need to send people to lands other than our own to kill people and break people's shit.
Yeah, fair enough.
The sports analogy, the best defense is a good offense. At some point, you need to go kick in somebody's door and apprehend and or fucking kill them.
Because your best defense is an aggressive one. Sorry, I couldn't help myself.
Absolutely. No. Good lead in. I will give you that one. But, at some point, yes. Sure. We can sit there and talk about the nobility of defense or whatnot, but part of combat, a armed conflict between entities, be it countries, idealists, whatever, extremists, is at some point you need to find where that is and get rid of it by any means necessary. So, it's great. Yes, he was looking at it from mostly a law enforcement perspective or whatnot, but there's something missing, I feel.
Yeah.
And the sheepdog, just kind of doesn't quite get after that, I feel. What about you?
So, I talked with guys about this, when I was a young police officer, and Grossman's books were fairly new. That was all the rage. I read them, went to all the street survival seminars, had a great time, learned a lot of good stuff. And Grossman's absolutely on point with that. I agree wholeheartedly. Because it does take something to put yourself into harm's way in defense of somebody else, right?
Certainly.
But one of the things that I noticed, and I'm a second generation cop, was that I think because Grossman was coming at it from a military background looking at law enforcement standing, I think there was something that he didn't take into account. And part of what he didn't take into account, I think, is police culture, right? So there are a great many police officers out there who want to keep society safe and they want to look after people and that's what they want to do, and that's fantastic. And those are clearly sheepdogs. But there's a thing out there that I refer to as wolfhounds, right? So a sheepdog stays near the flock, keeps himself between the flock and the wolves, the criminal element, and that's how he protects the flock. And he does that, and that's noble work. Wolfhounds want to hunt wolves. Well, there aren't wolves in the flock. So the wolfhound has to go into the woods, out to where the wolf is, and hunt the wolf. Because what he wants to do is hunt wolves.
Yeah.
Now, when hunting wolves, sheep that are safe becomes an unintended consequence.
Secondary benefit.
Which is great, because society is safe. But at the end of the day, the wolfhound doesn't really care about sheep.
Nope.
So when I was coming up as a police officer, you had kind of a subset of the police culture. And you had people who got offended by being called cops. They thought it was a pejorative. And then you had people who...
Peace officers.
Yeah, so you're I'm not a cop. I'm a police officer. Okay, cool. But then you had these guys... Mac was one of them, right? I grew up around Mac as a police officer and as a human being. And I'm proud to be in his company. But guys like Mac and other guys that I worked with who... They became cops because they wanted to hunt bad guys. And that's great that society is safe by that, but that's what they want. So those guys, they carried their guns off duty. When they were off duty, they conducted themselves in such a manner that if anything happened, they were always ready to go. It was a calling, it was a lifestyle, because it was part of their personality. And those guys called themselves cops. And their feelings didn't get hurt when you called them a cop. And to a degree, admittedly, sometimes they would sneer at somebody and go, oh, that guy's not a cop. He's a police officer.
When you see the same...
That guy's a sheepdog. He's not a wolf. I think you find the same kind of thing. I think there are plenty of guys in plenty of infantry units out there
I was going to say
who are sheepdogs, and that's great.
Yeah.
But then there are guys that you're going to find, and I'm sure you find some of them in infantry units as well. But you know, everybody automatically goes, oh, well, you must be talking about CAG or Dev Group, SEAL Team 6, or FBI HRT or any of these other guys, any of your Tier 1 organizations. Maybe not. I think, based on my experience working with some of those guys and training with them, you get a mixed bag in there. You get some guys who show up and they go to the SEAL teams because they want to do good, noble work, and they understand that means going to a faraway land and kicking in a door because that's going to make us safe in Sheboygan. And then there's probably a guy on that same team who goes, oh, I want to go to a faraway land and kick in a door because that's where the bad guy that we're going to smoke check is.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what about Sheboygan? Well, what about Sheboygan? I'm not worried about Sheboygan. I'm worried about killing the fucking bad guy over there.
And that falls into, you talk about that there's, differentiation between people who are police officers and cops. I would say that falls into your military of, you have your garrison military and you have your wartime military. Yeah. You have the people that joined in order to go overseas, kick in the door, hold blocks, whatever. The people that's what they want to do. This whole standing in formation and passing inspections or whatnot, I don't want any part of that. I have no intention to stick around here for 20 years.
Yeah.
So, yes, absolutely. I think that falls into the Department of Defense as we're sitting here talking about it as well.
And you have the guys who go, well, I just want money for college. Like the dude in, what was the Steven Seagal movie? Where the chick jumped out of the fucking cake.
Oh.
Lieutenant Lee, under siege.
There you go, yeah.
That is a hero bullshit. I just joined for college. I worked with some of those dudes.
Yeah, absolutely. Same. So, but yeah, I mean, you're right. It doesn't get after that. But, at the same time, back to what we do, the best defense is an aggressive one. How does our experiences as military, as Marine, Navy, and as a law enforcement officer, how does that translate into the training we are giving our students?
Yeah. So I think, and we've talked offline about this.
Absolutely.
So there becomes a disconnect, and this is not a dig on anybody who's coming from a military or law enforcement background as an instructor, but oftentimes what happens is, in my opinion anyway, military shooting is offensive shooting. Mm-hmm. And 99.9% of the time, police shooting is offensive shooting.
Certainly.
Because, Mac and I were talking about this. If you're an on-duty police officer and you get involved in a shooting, you're not going to shoot, break contact, and then leave. No. You're going to shoot and
stabilize the situation.
Move in, stabilize the situation, and take this person into custody.
Absolutely.
That's going to be an offensive operation. That's moving forward as opposed to... But John Q. Citizen, you've got a fight that you've got to fight right then and there. But realistically, the goal is to fight the fight to
get
disengage.
The fuck out of there.
Yeah, unask the X, right? Get in, hit Mike Tyson twice, and then get the fuck out of the ring. Not try to go 15 rounds with this guy. So the problem is, most of the time in the military, or even in the police department, 30 years I spent in the police department, I saw this, you get trained to teach your portion of this whole great big picture, right? There's everything to the left and to the right of bang, the bang being the bad event. Everything on the left of it is what led up to it, everything on the right of it is what happened afterwards. So typically in a police or military environment, they go, okay, you are teaching weapon manipulation. That's your job.
Certainly, and that is a commonality between all of it.
Yes, so your job is to teach the weapons manipulation. And then the guy from legal is going to teach the portion of when you're allowed to do this, right? And then the guy over there at the EMS station, he's going to teach first aid. So very rarely do you have somebody who goes, well, soup to nuts, this is how everything happens, and this is where you start, and then this is where you go. So everybody's teaching their compartmentalized portion of it. And as a result of that, I think a lot of military and law enforcement agents, and it's not their fault, because they learned what they learned to do their job, and what they do is non-applicable to what John Q. Citizen does 99% of the time. So they don't recognize that. And so they don't teach civilian shooting. They teach what they know, which is law enforcement shooting or military shooting, which is a slightly different animal. It's a half a bubble off a plum. And then so what happens is they end up teaching stuff that is non-applicable. It's not that it's bad stuff, it's just non-applicable. And if you are taught the non-applicable stuff and you do that, because it's a different set of rules, whole different rules of engagements, ROEs, now John Q. Citizen find themselves going to jail because they acted like a cop or a soldier when they didn't have the authority to be able to do so. And it's nobody's fault, but that's John Q. Citizen's going to take it in the shorts on that.
Yeah.
One of the things that I have pushed hard for us to do is for us to understand who it is that we're training, when we're training, and what it is that we're training in. So if you are a civilians group, if you're a church group, right, and you want to come and everybody there wants to learn how to deal with an active shooter in the church, that lesson plan is different, and that methodology for what they're going to do is different than if you want your concealed weapons permit.
Absolutely.
And it's also different than if we're going to teach CQC to a small police department or military agency. Now, all the fundamentals of marksmanship are the same.
Certainly. Your weapons manipulation is a commonality between all three of those.
Absolutely.
However, again, what's leading up to it and what follows afterwards and what you're trying to accomplish with that weapons manipulation are three completely different outcomes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because it all depends. It all depends on who's going where and how that works out for them. And so that's the other thing that I kind of chuckle about this is everybody wants to be a good guy. Everybody wants to do good things. That's understandable, right? There are people who want to be Superman, and then the rest of us want to be Batman. It's understandable, right?
Tony Stark, I'll take the money.
Yeah, there's that, I guess.
Without my parents dying. Anyways.
Yeah. Segue there. I don't want my parents killed by a Russian, but other than that, I'd like to be Tony Stark. And I don't want to live in New York City. But, so, everybody wants to be a good guy. Yeah. Even if they don't want to be a hero, everybody wants to be a good guy. So they go, oh man, I'm going to be a sheepdog. I have news for you. If you are John Q. Citizen, you can't afford to be a sheepdog. No. You can afford to protect you. You might get away with being a sheepdog. There is no way in hell you get to be a wolfhound.
No.
Because wolfhounds are government-sanctioned hunters.
Yes, that is government-sanctioned violence, regardless of how you look at it and what you think about it and how many movies you've watched.
Yeah.
There is no legal statute that allows you to go find somebody and fuck them up, no matter how righteous.
That's right. We would all like to be Batman, but we can't be Batman because it's illegal to be Batman. Right?
Absolutely.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I like Batman, and to a degree, I like what is it?
I'd like to go fuck up a bunch of people
what's his
for Castle.
Yeah, Frank Castle. Yeah, we'd all like to be Frank Castle, but you can't.
I'd like to go find a bunch of people and fuck them up for killing my dog too, but
Yes.
beyond that time and point,
Yeah, you
I'm
can't
probably going to jail.
Yeah, and so if you go to get your training and you go out and you buy your compensated full length fucking Glock and put all kinds of cool shit on it and carry it, you go to your fucking 2-day 7,000 round class.
Machine gunner.
Yeah, your machine gunner class over the weekend to be fucking John Wick. What you learn may or may not be applicable, may or may not get you landed in fucking jail.
Yeah.
So
Your weapons manipulation might be fucking spot on, but you're probably going to jail.
yeah. So that was a pretty good rabbit hole. It was a good segue. You got that in there, snuck that in on me. But yeah, so it's just a difference of opinion.
That's not saying that law enforcement and military instructors are good or bad. It's just a different background.
It is. It really is, and that's one of the things that I want to make sure people understand. I'm not dinging cops or military who are trainers. I worked with a bunch of them, and the vast majority of them are great at what they do. Just remember that typically they're training cops or military, and how you train cops and military and what cops and military are trained to do is a little bit different than what John Q. Citizen's supposed to do. Yeah. So when you go to get your training, think not only about who your instructor is, but think about who you are.
Yeah.
And what it is that you're going to get out of it. Mac and I had that conversation about, well, we're both now John Q. Citizen. Yes and no. We're really neither foul nor good red meat. We're busted human beings. But society and the law recognizes that. Society doesn't say, oh, well, you're an accountant and you weren't trained for 30 years to run to the sound of the guns, so we're going to give you a pass. So doesn't work out that well. Any alibis? Any shots across the bow?
Appreciate the discussion.
Cool. Thanks for coming in. Always good to get your perspective on things. Well, I think that's it. So hope you enjoyed this. Hope you found it amusing. Maybe your feelings got hurt. Maybe they didn't. Maybe you're getting used to us by now. We got to ramp up our game. But thanks for coming out. We hope to see you on the next one. Be safe out there.
The sports analogy, the best defense is a good offense.
Because your best defense is an aggressive one. Sorry, I couldn't help myself.
Absolutely. No. Good lead in. I will give you that one.